Nigeria produce us as medical doctors, no matter the rots within our public sector in terms of remuneration, let's work together and see how we can find solution to that. But let's remain in Nigeria to serve our own country. Address some other questions so that we close. Yes. Nigerian doctors recruited using the normal process of recruitment are leaving the service to go for a white collar commitments outside the country. So you mentioned it. In this case, therefore, we have listened. Whether your submission is a good reason enough to see those federal character imbalances, it is within the place of this committee to look at your nominal role institution by institution and ask you. So I think, in my opinion, I have had a lot of good information from you as to why some of those things are done like that, irrespective of whosoever's interpretation regarding to this interaction. But one issue I will open that members will equally ask is this. When you're talking about staff recruitment, it's not only about the professional staffs. We have equally seen in your nominal role where some of those non-professional departments, like admin, I wouldn't use the non-professional in terms of the medical line. The admin is a professional, accountant is a professional, non-medical profession department, where you discover that they are jam-packed in some of those institutions. We will review it and see the possible way out of that, because it's not about only the health-related thing. But at this juncture, let me allow, we will regulate this engagement in the best way. We should not add more suffering to the Nigerian people looking at the sensitive nature of these institutions where you suffocate. They tell you someone have headache, someone have emergency, and the only available slot they have is to recruit the person that is available to them. We know the cries as representative of Nigerians, how doctors are difficult to be found. So members of this committee are quite aware of those background that some of the CMDs are facing. I'm saying this before the camera at the risk of being misunderstood. I'm very sure we understand that. So we will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, the leaders, on behalf of all of you. Having done that, you make presentation. We'll use you as a case study. We'll start with your own university teaching hospital as a case study so that we pick other ones and interact with you in this regard. So may I, at this juncture, allow the leadership of the Committee of Chief Medical Directors to introduce themselves,
Good afternoon, the chairman of this committee, Right Honorable Yusuf Adamugaji, and other distinguished members of this committee. Thank you, sir, for the privilege of giving me and my colleagues to appear before you. And on behalf of my colleagues, I honestly, sincerely want to apologize for our inability to have appeared earlier. What happened was that we did receive letters, but by the time we received letters, the dates they had given had long expired. So we had to get in touch, sir, with the leadership to ask to negotiate for a new date. And we thank you for graciously granting us this privilege. And also the challenge we had, the documentation was enormous. Many of us have had to charter cars to bring the documents required. Now, sir, I speak, my name is Professor M. Basi. I'm the Chief Medical Director, University of Uyo Teaching Hospital, and also the Chairman of the Committee of Chief Medical Directors and Medical Directors of Federal Tertiary Hospitals. So right now, we are about 73 in number because it appears about 13 new tertiary hospitals have been established, even though many of them are yet to take off. They're on paper, The leadership has been appointed, but they are yet to take off. So that breaks down into teaching hospitals, about 22 or 24 teaching hospitals, federal medical centers, specialty hospitals. Specialty hospitals are usually hospitals that are monospecialty. Either they're psychiatric hospitals, the orthopedic hospitals, and then eye hospital, ear hospital, things like that. And I know the number sounds enormous, sir. But when one underscores the fact that the current population of Nigeria is well over 200 million people, the number is still small, against the fact that the federal hospitals most times are the ones that are really functioning. I would take my state, for example. My hospital is probably the only one someone at 2 a.m. in the night will rush to if he has an emergency. So we thank the federal government, and what we appeal for is the usual support in terms of funding and in terms of staffing. Now, I've already apologized for a few of our colleagues who could not be here, but most of the rest are here. Now, sir, the challenges of the hospitals. While we thank the government, because it appears for a long time it was only the health sector and maybe the military that were recruiting. We thank the government for that privilege. But the truth is that the health sector is currently undergoing a very, very major crisis. Crisis in terms of manpower. Now, it takes averagely, I would say, a number of years, 6 years to train a medical doctor, another 6 years for him to specialize, become a specialist. That's 12 years. And what we are seeing, sir, is that medical specialists, not just doctors now, nurses, in fact, more nurses are even leaving. Doctors, nurses, laboratory scientists, physiotherapists, radiographers, all manner of health professionals are leaving the country in droves. So that's part of the challenge we are having. Now, replacement of these health workers is a very major problem. A major problem because even though we have usually granted approvals to recruit, getting the waivers is usually a very tortuous process. Now, for you to get the waiver, it starts by you getting permission from your board, which sits every 3 months. Now, after the permission from the board, you now have to write through the ministry to the head of service. And that process can take anything between 3 to 6 months, depending on how. Then from the head of service, you are granted that waiver. You still have to you have two choices. Either you advertise, but where we have less than 200, we have to write to the Federal Character Commission for a waiver. And that, again, would take another long process. And even before that, even after the waiver from Federal Character Commission, you still have to write to the Budget Office. So we actually have two waivers, one from the head of service and the other one from the Budget Office. Because the Budget Office has to ensure that you have the financial, capability to recruit the new staff. So anything, even the best of scenarios, it takes you more than 6 months for you to get the waiver to recruit an exiting staff. The other challenges which we have, which, is the fact that I've talked about the brain drain. Too many of our people are leaving. But it's also the restiveness in the health sector. Just recently, we are aware that the resident doctors had been on strike for a long time. They called off the strike. The health sector unions, JOHESU, are also warming up for their strikes, usually primarily due to remuneration. But in the case of resident doctors, one of the major issues which they have always pointed out is the fact that you do not have enough, they are overworked, and in which in many cases are true. Because recruitment of resident doctors, if I have to use my own institution as an example, we have a waiver to recruit resident doctors. But unfortunately, sir, we cannot even find the resident doctors to recruit. Because for you to be a resident doctor, you have to have either the primary fellowship. So where you may find the doctor who has just graduated, you may not find the one that fits. So these are a lot of the challenges that we have in the health sector. Now, sir, I know that another problem we have is actually location of institutions. It will be difficult because I know one of your mandates has to do with, we're asked to present federal character, that's states, balancing. Many of our hospitals, sir, actually started as state-owned hospitals. If I have to use my own as an example, where you had 100% from a particular, state. And going forward, if it is not an attractive location, you find it difficult to attract a skilled health worker who is in high demand from another state. And if for the north, most of the northern states, it will be very difficult for anybody from the south or southeast to want to go, basically because of the insecurity in the north. And vice versa, you will not find anybody from the north wanting to come. So we have these challenges, usually, of federal because of, and we need these workers. So wherever you find, sir, a doctor, a nurse, irrespective of wherever the person comes from, you have to grab, because usually these people are not readily available. So the other challenge, which I think I have to mention, because it may appear that some of our submissions are incomplete. And that is because we were asked to submit the personnel. Many of us have done, but I'm aware that a few institutions have actually concluded their recruitment, but the people have not yet resumed, because you have to have, following your recruitment, you have to have your compliance from both the federal ministry and also from the Federal Character Commission. So, and these people have not yet resumed. So they may not be reflected on the 2023 personnel. So those are some of the challenges we have in the hospitals. I may, at this point, yield the floor. If any of my colleagues, members of the Expo, they would introduce themselves, and then if they have anything else to add to that. Thank you, sir.
A pathway now, okay?
And
Canada. And that pathway says, previously, if you don't do your residency training in the U.S., they won't appoint you, okay? You have to go to the U.S. and start residency training afresh. But that has changed, all right? So now they have created a short pathway that if you have done your residency training anywhere, maybe in Nigeria or in anywhere, you can actually go to the U.S., okay, and practice, okay, or do a very short period of training, 1-2 years, and then you can start practicing as a fellow. So it's a big challenge. Thank you for the opportunity.
And just to add, sir, some African countries are also beginning to poach from Nigeria. The West Coast, they are looking for a specialist. So many of our people are now going to places like Sierra Leone, and the wages they earn, Gambia, the wages they earn $3,000-4,000. It's about 3-4 times what they earn back home. So we are beginning to see that people are leaving to African countries too, sir.
Thank you.
Even we are, sorry, Chairman, even we are poaching from ourselves.
We know why we allow you to speak in this manner. This activities is done live. It's an investigation. In as much as we will ask agencies question on what we see in their submission, for them to respond so that we will find an answer to a lot of questions that Nigerians, if it is Ministry of Agri, Ministry of Water Resources, and other agencies that appear before us, our interaction with them will not be like this. We have nothing to hide. That is why we are doing this. The aim of this committee is to reduce the suffering of the Nigerian people by way of employment racketeering, trying to find solution to those things. But if we are doing that, and we did not give you the floor to tell us in the reports we have studied from the various health institutions that are defective in terms of federal character balancing, because of the uniqueness of this institution, we allow you to speak to us. Why do you have 10-5 from a particular state and 0 in other states? This committee may not treat you equal with other agencies, looking at the unique nature of your revelation to us. We,
chief medical directors and medical directors of federal medical colleges, was there any attempt on your side as a professional body to advise government on how to provide measures to mitigate medical professionals leaving this country? Reasons why medical professionals are leaving this country. What they are going there to do is because of money. And you know Nigeria have the capacity to give the same stimulants. Because training and development alone cannot guarantee employees' productivity alone. There must be stimulants. And what are those stimulants? So were you able to make submission to government, advising government that government should put in place other things that can mitigate or prevent or discourage medical professionals going abroad? Another thing, if you look at the salary package of health institutions in Nigeria, it cannot be compared with any ministry. But substantial part of that recurrent expenditure goes to non-medical professionals. A medical director or an institution of, a medical institution will be given approval by or waiver by relevant agencies or institutions to recruit medical professionals. They will end up recruiting 90% non-medical professionals, thereby taking only 10%. And their excuses is what you have said now, that they are not available. If they are not available, why can't you return the money to government? Because you can have a situation whereby now if you go to one department, you have a work that can be concluded by one person. 10 people are doing that particular job at the same time, despite there is improvement in technology. So we have a lot of issues. We have to look inward on how to address this thing. The whole world is reduced to a global village where people are talking about AI, artificial intelligence. And now you are taking 20 people in one unit just to issue card to patient, 20 people. So government will be looking at the salary package, the total salary package of your institution, and will be thinking that it's doing favor to that particular institution. And at the end of the day, if you discover you have only 10 medical doctors, maybe 20 nurses, to mention but a few, but substantial number of staff are redundant staff doing nothing, being jump-packed in one department, doing a job that somebody, maybe in some department, only 2 people can do, and you have 20 or 30 people doing that particular thing. You have to rationalize all this. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I thought artificial intelligence reducing workforce. You will have problem with the unemployment on the street. So I agree with you, but we are not developed to the extent of artificial intelligence. I am for the people, particularly the common man on the street. So if you bring artificial intelligence, I will fight it. We are not yet there. Thank you.
I'm going to share my earlier first question I had in mind, but I'll take it off from where my colleague also said, because I see a gap there that we need to fill. Why the chairman saw the negative side? Let me see the positive side of his submission. And the positive side is that while we're sympathetic to your plight, and why I also know that if we're talking about advocacy, about bringing to government what government should do, I know your union is doing a lot, and the whole world knows that. And that's why we've gotten the success of suspending the current strike by the medical practitioners, but then we're not yet there. So we'll leave that. The problem, the area I'm going is that now you have been able to make an assertion, and you need to justify this assertion in writing and in your documentation before this committee. To say that when you get approvals to recruit and you cannot recruit, at the end of the year, where does the money go? You must include in your submission to us as for the surpluses that you have every year, and where does the money go? Otherwise, if you are not returning funds, so are you keeping the fund for staff that are not recruited? That's basically what I also want to say that.
Order.
I also want
Maybe if you have something to say, we'll change the strategy and take you institution by institution, so that the side talk you are doing, we will face us so that we sort it out.
Yeah, I can identify the young man in cap.
Yes.
In the outside cap, so he will answer that question.
Don't worry.
Now, with the permission of the chairman. And the second thing I also want to also implore you to do is to say that you must do yourselves and do this committee some good favor by ensuring that irrespective of all your challenges that you have enunciated before this committee, it is incumbent that your documentation as to what we have requested of you is well put intact. All this will be no excuse for you not to do your proper documentation and answer the questions that the committee has requested for.
Thank you.
The major reason is that it's also going to help us to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think